Hi, Janice.
Hi, Anthony.
Today we're going to quickly run down the pros and cons of hiring freelancers versus hiring a full-time virtual assistant. So the 4-Hour Workweek, the great book by Tim Ferriss, sort of romanticized the idea of having this full-time virtual assistant based in the Philippines. Sort of having like your what's that movie, Devil Wears Prada? Having your
Yes.
your right hand woman, like somebody always at your side, and that's sort of like the power trippy kind of vibe of having your own dedicated full-time virtual assistant, right?
Right.
And I think actually there are many situations where that's totally meritorious and worth it. But for most starting online entrepreneurs, or even most folks who have just regular corporate jobs, or even a stay-at-home parent who needs some extra help, they probably don't need a full-time virtual assistant. And maybe the smarter play is to build up to that through freelancers. Yeah.
Right. Start small, see where it goes.
So let's do a quick comparison of the two, and then we'll talk about sort of how to build up to it. So going with a full-time virtual assistant from the Philippines, the most popular marketplace is a website called onlinejobs.ph. Link in the website in the show notes. What you need to understand is here are the pros and cons. I mean, yes, you get somebody full-time who's dedicated to you. And the reason Tim Ferriss and most people promote the Philippines is because it's an English-speaking country. It's a U.S. Not a commonwealth, but a
The
protectorate, I think.
territory?
Territory, yep.
Yes.
And the arbitrage is really great, meaning basically you're paying folks like $2 or $3 an hour, right? Because of the pay scales and the economy. Like you can really get some great help at rates that seem ridiculous by U.S. standard or U.S. mainland standards, yeah?
Right, right.
But nonetheless, even at those rates, you still need to budget for at least $500 per month for a decent full-time virtual assistant. Because no matter what the per hour rate is, they need to make a living. They need to have enough. You can't just pay them $6 for 2 hours worth of work, right? Nobody can live off that.
Correct.
A VA has a certain minimum monthly salary or earnings they need to maintain. So just it's not going to be less than $500 a month. All right? And just keep that in mind, because when you hire somebody in the Philippines or anyone full time, you can't just stop. I mean, I guess you could, but there's a stickiness. It's much harder to fire somebody from their full time job than to stop using a freelancer. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. Yes.
Just like as a human being.
Right, right. That person has dedicated their time just to you and your business. It's very hard to just say, okay, I'm done this
Good luck
week.
finding your next job, right?
Right, right.
One of the drawbacks is that you're going to get a jack of all trades, master of none. Meaning, virtual assistants in the Philippines will be pretty good at a bunch of stuff, like graphic design, website management, social media, things like that. But they won't be great at any one of them, for the most part. And then lastly, they also need a lot of training, especially for tasks that you want done a very specific way, whether it's graphic design, social media, whatnot. You're going to have to do a lot of training. So those are the pros and cons, or the limitations of a full-time virtual assistant. Now with freelancers, it's a freelancer, right? So it's pay as you go. You pay for on a per project basis. And one of the great benefits is you get really specialized talent for each task. So instead of having one full-time virtual assistant to do graphic design, to do website management, and to do, let's say, writing some blog posts. I mean, honestly, those are three pretty disparate skill sets, writing, designing, and website management. Instead, you can go on Fiverr and get three different freelancers who are very good at those three different things, right?
That seems to make a little more sense than using one person who's maybe mildly adequate at it and will do an okay job. Or now you have three people that's all they do are those specific jobs.
So, I mean, for example, I use Dardo87 from the Czech Republic to do some of our graphic design on Fiverr. But I wouldn't ask her to write any website copy for me, right? I would hire somebody else for that. And I recently had a WordPress problem with some image sizing. And again, I wouldn't ask this young lady for that. I went to another gentleman in Pakistan who solved that for me very easily for $5. So it's awesome in terms of getting specialized help on a one-off basis. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And you've talked about that in another podcast. And that may be a great link to put in here because there are so many good people out there
Oh,
that
sure.
do these small jobs that know what they're doing.
Now, also, you want to start building up a training library. So if you're building up to hopefully have a full-time virtual assistant later to do all those things for you, I mean, and there will be a point where it might make sense, then you want to build up a training library so that you can just send them the links when you're ready to have a full-time assistant. So here's what I mean by that. When I hire a graphic design freelancer on Fiverr, it's not, you don't just say, make me an image. You know, you need to, you need to
please extract what's in my brain and make it into something pretty.
So what I like to do is I like to record screencasts, which is kind of like what we're doing here on YouTube, where I show what's going on my screen and I sort of I voice over it and say, hey, you know, I like this element over here, and this font could be great if it's a little bigger, and I'll have examples from competing websites who I think are very well designed. Like, I like the way this one is laid out. As you make these videos, save them. These screencast videos, save them and name them, you know, thumbnail design or website blog post design, so that you have this library built up and that you've been building up as you're hiring freelancers, so that by the time you do hire your VA, your full-time virtual assistant, you'll just say, hey, go to this Dropbox. You'll see a list of 15 videos. Watch them all. This is how I want everything done. And the training manual is built up already. Yeah.
Right. And there's no miscommunication by trying to type it out. And think of how much time it's going to save you from not having to redo that all and explain it all again.
So, I mean, I think I've been kind of leading up to this. I really do think that the way you do best of both worlds is you start off with freelancers. I'm a big proponent of Fiverr just because, like I said in the past, it's so inexpensive. You can try 3 or 4 different freelancers on a task and just choose the 1 or 2 best results and then keep using those 1 or 2 best results. It's a constantly iterating because it's so inexpensive. And when, like I said, while you're doing this, you are building up a library of training material so that if you do get to the point where you want to hire a full-time assistant, you have this video library that you can just send them to a shared Dropbox link or whatever. And then lastly, just from an economic perspective, you want to prove to yourself that you have enough work to justify the salary of the full-time virtual assistant. I mean, if I don't spend $500 a month on Fiverr, I will never justify, I won't be able to justify a full-time virtual assistant. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And you're testing the waters before jumping in. Like you said, if you're not spending $500 or can justify, or that you're making more than that,
right.
It's better to make those small jumps instead of the big, huge jump that you can't get out of.
Very true. Cool. This was a short one. I just wanted to give this quick tip on how to sort of navigate full-time versus freelance. Janice, anything to add to this?
No, I think it's a great idea. I mean, personally, I love the subject as I'm a freelance virtual assistant. So definitely near and dear to my heart. But I totally agree with you.
Yep. So that's all we have on this one. Hopefully you guys are listening and trying to at least test the waters and incorporate a virtual assistant or a freelance virtual assistant in your life in some small way. I'm telling you, it makes your life so much more enjoyable. So check it out and talk to you next time. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome. Talk soon.
Bye.